Good evening, you're watching Mirror Now with me, Aarti Subramaniam. We have lots lined up for you over the next 1 hour, but let's bring you the latest as the economy took centre stage in the political fireworks that took place in Parliament this morning. While replying to the motion of thanks to the President's address in the Rajya Sabha, Prime Minister Modi claimed hirings have doubled across sectors after COVID curbs were eased. However, the Congress was quick to dismiss it. Ex-Finance Minister P.Chidambaram led the party's charge and asked the PM about the 2 crore job promise that was made by the centre.
रिपोर्ट बताती है कि कोरोना के पहले की तुलना में कोविड रिस्ट्रिक्शन खुलने के बाद हायरिंग दोगुनी बढ़ गई है। नेस्कॉम की रिपोर्ट में भी यही ट्रेंड की चर्चा है। इसके अनुसार 2017 के बाद डायरेक्ट इनडायरेक्ट करीब नेस्कॉम का कहना है 27 लाख जॉब्स आईटी सेक्टर में, और ये सिर्फ स्किल की दृष्टि नहीं, उससे ऊपर के लेवल के लोग होते हैं जिनको रोजगार प्राप्त हुआ है।
As on 31/3/21, there were 8,72,243 vacancies in the central government. 8,72,243 vacancies. And the almighty government of India recruited 78,264 persons to these vacancies, leaving nearly 8 lakh vacancies vacant as of today.
Well, during his address, the Prime Minister also said that India is one of the few countries which is recording high growth rate and medium inflation amid the pandemic.
अगर महंगाई की बात करें तो अमेरिका में 40 साल में सबसे अधिक महंगाई का ये दौर अमेरिका झेल रहा है। ब्रिटेन 30 साल में सबसे अधिक महंगाई के मार से आज परेशान है। दुनिया के 19 देशों में जहां यूरो करेंसी है, वहां महंगाई का दर हिस्टोरिकली हाईएस्ट है, उच्चतम है। ऐसे माहौल में भी महामारी के दबाव के बावजूद हमने महंगाई को एक लेवल पर रोकने का बहुत प्रयास किया है, ईमानदारी से कोशिश की।
Okay, so in Parliament there, the economy taking centre stage as Finance Minister or ex-Finance Minister P.Chidambaram countering some of those claims made by the Prime Minister, questioning where is the jobs. The Prime Minister, on the other hand, giving an account of the jobs that have been created, of the economic green shoots that have been witnessed since COVID. Remember, the economic forecast as per India's Economic Survey 2022 says that there is expected to be about an 8% growth in the Indian economy. In fact, 8 to 8.5% is what is predicted by the Indian Economic Survey. Well, the Prime Minister in Parliament saying that 27 lakh jobs have been created in the IT sector and there had been a record rise in the number of unicorns. The Prime Minister also saying that inflation had been brought under control, comparing it to the inflation during the UPA regime, and saying that India has recorded a high growth and low inflation record. Dr. Santosh Mehrotra joins us this evening to analyze that. Dr. Mehrotra, I want to separate the politics and I want to separate the economics from it. Purely by the numbers, purely by the unprecedented nature of COVID, how has the Indian economy performed compared to other economies, both in terms of growth, both in terms of job creation?
Well, in FY21, the world economy contracted by 3.1%. India's economy contracted by 7.3%, more than double what the world economy contracted by. Why? For two reasons. One, the poor management of COVID, particularly a national strict lockdown, which was unplanned. And secondly, the nature of the stimulus was very weak. Yes, it has rebounded, and the government may try and tell us that we have grown our growth is the fastest in the world, but our contraction was also the fastest in the world. So obviously on a low base, you're going to rebound. So that's so much on growth. We will wait to see how the economy performs as we move forward. On jobs, well, the economy was slowing prior to the pandemic, and the unemployment rate was at a 48-year high in 2019. And at least 10 million new people, salaried people, have lost jobs. So if 30 million people were unemployed, according to the National Sample Survey Organization of the Government of India, an additional 10 million people have gotten unemployed and have lost salaried jobs. In addition, there are millions of MSMEs which have lost work. So obviously the unemployment is much worse. Yes, some jobs have been created in IT. Obviously, the IT sector is the one sector. EdTech is another sector. FinTech is another sector where jobs have been created. But that doesn't even begin to compensate for the overall loss. That's the bottom line.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mr. Mehrotra, I request you to stay with us. Economist Madan Sabnavis also joins us. Mr. Sabnavis, good evening. Thanks so much for speaking to Mirror Now. Would you agree with Dr. Mehrotra's assessment that perhaps the signs of recovery are still a little premature? India's not done as well as it should have done, and the government is probably tom-tomming its achievements a bit too early?
No, I think I'll have a slightly different view, because I think jobs are being created once again, but we need to distinguish between the sectors. So what we saw was that the sectors which were affected on account of the second and the third wave and the lockdowns, especially in the services sector, these are the ones which are yet to recover, but we have seen that since the severity of the lockdowns were more restricted or limited, so the job losses were not that strict. But definitely the job losses in the SME sector, as well as certain of the services sector, has taken a beating in the second wave. But we have seen a lot of these jobs have really come back. So actually, I would say that jobs have definitely been created in the manufacturing sector, and to a very large extent in the service sector, though of course it's not broad-based. So we may have to wait for the recovery to take place, because we've seen a large amount of migration which has taken place on account of the lockdowns, especially the first and second. While I would say around 60 to 70% of the labor has come back to the urban areas, we still have another balance of around 30% which has to come back. So it's kind of a mixed picture. So as the economy progresses, we can be more confident that jobs would be created, and a large part of these the jobs which are lost will probably hopefully be recouped to a very large extent, maybe 75% or so by the end of 22-23.
Well, Mr. Sabnavis, I was also asking Dr. Mehrotra about how India stacks up compared to other economies. Of course, COVID is a once-in-a-lifetime, event which nobody can really predict the trajectory of. Nobody can predict how long it's going to last. So even planning, it's going to be a bit difficult. But compared to other economies, both in terms of the impact and the recovery rate.
See, actually, if you look at India, we had this problem of employment even before the pandemic came. So we had seen that there was not a commensurate growth in job creation, along with the GDP growth numbers which we had seen. So it was a problem we had earlier, because there were issues of consumption and investment not quite playing the part which was expected. Now that we have had the pandemic, there's definitely been a severe setback, especially for the blue-collar workers. White-collar workers, I would say, are more or less gotten resettled back in their jobs. And now that we see that the growth process has picked up momentum, and if you go by what the budget or the the economic survey is talking of, we are expecting this kind of growth to be maintained. So true that what we have seen in 21-22 overall GDP growth was maybe around 1.5% higher than the pre-pandemic times. And we didn't really see the same kind of job creation which took place in 2021. But when we're looking at 21-22 onwards, there's definitely been a recouping. And if you just look at the corporates, if you look at corporates, profitability has been good. They have started re-employing people. So if you leave out the services sector, the contact-intensive sectors, we have generally seen a fairly positive mood, which will probably be replicated in 22-23 also.
Dr. Mehrotra, some signs of recovery. The CMI data indicating India's unemployment rate has dropped.
I can't hear you.
Mr. Mehrotra,
I couldn't hear Madan in the last 1 minute, and I can't hear your questions any longer.
Okay, we'll try and fix that audio. Can you hear me right now? No. Okay. We seem to have some trouble with that audio line, Dr. Mehrotra's audio line. We'll try and fix that. Sabnavis, I was just going to ask Dr. Mehrotra about some of the initial data coming in from the CMI, one in terms of India's unemployment rate dropping to 6.57, which is the lowest since March 2021, and also an indication of consumer sentiment also growing and also picking up. One, how seriously do we take this jobs data coming in from CMI? We have no actual measure of it, and especially in the unorganized sector, which was one of the worst hit by COVID. Can we really say that there is an improvement without a tangible or a tangible indication of the unorganized sector?
I agree with you, but the thing is that CMI is probably the only data source which we have, and they carry out these regular surveys. And I think we fall into this problem of interpreting monthly numbers. So we need to see what the trend is, that if it comes down for a particular month, whether this is being retained or is a trend actually maintained in the next couple of months before we can jump to a conclusion that unemployment has actually come down. So I think that's a problem we have when we look at single month numbers. And in terms of the unorganized sector, yes, it's a major problem because it's very, very, very fuzzy. It's very difficult for one to know if a person is really unemployed or not, or the person is employed or not. Lots of migrants who've gone back to their villages are now employed on land, and we all know that there are too many people who are working on land. There's a case of disguised unemployment, which doesn't really get reflected in the numbers. So at the end of the day, I think the proof is really in case more jobs are created, there's more spending which takes place, which leads to higher consumption. So that's what we have seen taking place to a certain extent in 21-22, and this is what we are banking on, but that will be the final reflection of job creation, because job creation is always based on a sample survey. We'll never get a comprehensive picture about whether jobs are really being created, how many jobs are being lost. But at the end of the day, if people are earning more money, they will definitely be spending it, and that's what and the revival of the consumption cycle will be reflective of that.
Okay, Mr. Sabnavis, thank you so much for speaking to Mirror Now. We're still having some trouble with Dr. Mehrotra's line. Of course, this is a conversation that we will continue to have on Mirror Now. Jobs, employment, the economy, key parts, the key focus areas on Mirror Now.